And now, broadcasting from Titletown, USA, here's Joe Simon.
Welcome back. We're talking about long-term care. We have subject matter Matt Andersen. And what we want to scare you with to keep your attention here is let's take a look at what the costs have done historically over time. I know it's scary and it should get your attention. It's a reality knocking at everybody's front door in America. We know that 70% of Americans in that household are going to experience this emotional and financial roller coaster ride. Costs are increasing at 7% annually right now. And the icing on the cake is the healthcare industry is having a very challenging time holding on to their qualified employees. So the table is set for Matt Andersen to come back in. And how you like that intro, Matt?
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for welcoming. The reality is exactly like you showed. Costs are going up. It is something that's expensive, and families are spending anywhere from $75,000 to $150,000 a year on the cost of care.
Let's kind of walk through some of the thoughts you had. You had some nice graphics prepared. And with that, we'll kind of set the table using that. And then we'll get into a couple case studies quickly to make this real for people that are viewing right now. So go ahead, Matt.
Perfect. So one of the things that I like to talk with consumers is, are you insuring the right risk? And we've got a graphic here that shows really the probability of 4 different events from happening. Now, mind you, this is a little bit old. I stole it from a carrier probably 15, 20 years ago. But it's the likelihood of each of these events happening. First, top left box, 1 out of 1,200. It's the likelihood you should lose your home to a fire. Everyone has home insurance. 5 out of 1,200. Certainly, this was before cell phones, but that's the likelihood you should lose or wreck your car in a car accident. Everyone has car insurance, not even something that they think about. 105 out of 1,200 is the likelihood you should spend the night in a hospital. Everyone has health insurance. But statistically speaking, the most common of all of these events is a long-term care claim, right? And while you may see that stat vary depending on the source, all of them are generally saying it's about 70% chance that someone over the age of 65 should experience a long-term care event. So statistically speaking, LTC is the most common of all 4 of these events, yet often it's the one that's last addressed with insurance, and something that we're trying to bring forward and talk to more consumers about.
I've never seen it explained that way before. That scatter chart. That's I've heard it, the words used, but I haven't seen it quite that way, Matt. That's kind of interesting. What other statistics could you share as we prepare to talk a little more about some case studies?
Yeah, so really, what is the LTC reality? What are we seeing out there in the space? And again, like I mentioned, what the statistics say is that about 70% of those over the age of 65 are going to need long-term care at some point in their life. Average length of care is around 3.4 years, which I think is probably one of the most misleading statistics that I see. When you really break up the data, what we see is there's a whole bunch of claims that are anywhere from 3 to 12 months. And then if it's not over within 12 months, typically it's going to be significantly longer than 3.5 years. So when planning for long-term care, it's really a barbell type of thing where you see a bunch of claims that are less than a year and then a bunch of claims that are longer than 3 or 4 years. The most commonly purchased plan is a 3-year plan. However, it's oftentimes kind of makes industry insiders laugh a little bit because you've either bought way too much coverage or not nearly enough coverage. So making sure you've got the right amount of protection is one of the most essential things that we do with long-term care planning.
So what we're seeing here is this is a process. We don't just sit down and slap down an illustration and say it's going to cost you $20,000 to insure your long-term care. It's a step-by-step process, which is a perfect time for me to just insert the fact that we have a bonus for those that are watching today. We have an e-booklet that walks you through the details of how to think through this, possibly include a loved one or some family members. I would suggest possibly handing this out if you've got adult kids that are kind of concerned. Maybe some of them are, some of them don't care. This is a booklet you could share with your kids to just kind of give them an idea of where your thinking is at. If you're an adult child in your 40s, in your 50s, in your early 60s, and you've still got parents that are maybe in their 80s or 90s, these are things that there are big questions that need well thought out answers. This booklet, which I'm going to kind of walk through in a minute before we leave here today, give you a better insight on that. But Matt, let's turn quickly to some case studies. So let's say I am that person that's a couple in our late 40s, and we're thinking maybe that's something for my parents. But hey, what about me? Do you ever run across cases like that? That 49-year-old and that 51-year-old couple, is that too early to really look at something like this?
So one, I know that I'm unique personally. So I'm 44 years old now. I purchased a plan when I was in my 30s, my late 30s. I understand that that's not the norm. Um, I'd say usually we're looking at late 40s, early 50s, when people are addressing some other needs that maybe want to consider long-term care as well. A lot of times in your 40s and early 50s, life insurance is an important component of your financial plan. And it's fairly easy to add on a rider to those life insurance policies, a permanent policy with a true LTC rider that allows you to use that death benefit for both death benefit and potentially advance it early if you should need a long-term care event.
That's a great suggestion. That rider. We talked a little more about it in part one of this conversation. So let's go to case number two of three. Case number two of three is a widow or widower. They're in their mid 60s. They have a nice amount of money, let's say less than $1 million. Their home is paid for, their car is paid for, their kids are all grown up. There's no special needs involved there with their children, their grandchildren, or themselves. So they're living a great independent lifestyle, saving a little money, planning to go to Italy sometime in the future with some friends. That kind of widow or widower. Let's talk about that person, Matt. They don't have long-term care, but they have a little bit of a pension, some 401k money. They've got a house that's way too big for them, and they're kind of thinking, well, I'll just sell that and downsize. Then I got a bunch of money that'll just ride off into the sunset with. What approach do we really look at, and what kind of questions do we have as we kind of create their strategy?
So a lot of times we can work with the financial advisor to see how much of that um, savings we have access to. There's multiple different types of plans for someone in their mid 60s. We can use non qualified money if she's got cash savings. We could use qualified money. So maybe she's got a little bit of extra cash in her retirement plan. We can take out maybe $100,000 of that qualified money and move it over into a long term care plan that can provide LTC, a little bit of life insurance as a backup, and some cash value. So there's certainly ways that we can use qualified money or non-qualified money, or maybe even cash flow it if she's receiving a pension and needs to cash flow it on a annual basis. We can set it up that way as well.
Yeah, and I think an important part there that you're alluding to, and we won't get into all details today, but sometimes a long-term care insurance product of some kind, and we looked at the continuum in part one that you'll have to see again. But what's important here is maybe it's not the full extent. So you need $10,000 per month of long-term care money, but maybe a portion of that is self-insured because of the way you are, but maybe we get a policy that has a $5,000 benefit, or at least access to that $5,000 per month benefit, and the rest comes out of other assets that you have.
That's my number one recommendation, is that so many times I see consumers trying to insure for 100% of the cost. That's not needed, right? In today's dollars, if your care should be $8,000 a month and you've got a plan that covers $5,000 of that eight, that's a winning scenario. I'll never forget one of the carriers put me in a call center at the claim center and let me listen in to people calling in. And people would call in and find out that they had access to $3,000 a month of benefit. And they'd be in tears, overjoyed that during some of the most expensive time of their life, they have access to an additional $3,000 tax-free income. It's a meaningful difference regardless of what amount it is. So absolutely approach it with a co-insurance type of design in mind, that we're going to take care of a portion of it. And then the other portion, certainly we can self-insure with savings, Social Security, other assets that you may have.
The last case I want to talk about out of our case breakdown here today is a 91-year-old lady or man, kind of showing some signs that some special care is going to be needed in the future, but still living at home, and has adult children, has adult grandchildren. But guess what? Everybody lives out of town. She lives in the town she was born in and has been there forever. Same church, same car for many, many years, knows all of her neighbors, and has seen the second generation of neighbors come in. That type of person. That could be my mother. So, and she does not have long-term care. Is that a sad case scenario? What do we do with somebody like that? She has assets. She still lives in her home. The home's valued at $500,000. What do we do in that case?
So as far as really true LTC insurance, our options are very limited. One, due to age. Two, you mentioned there might be some cognitive issues, but there are some options that we can take a look at. One, there certainly are annuities out there that will double the income if they should need care, for long-term care, for example. So if the income generated from the annuity is $10,000, they'll double it to $20,000 if they're receiving care. Another option is, well, I'm no expert at it, but a reverse mortgage, right? So if she wants to stay and remain in her home, that's the most important priority, then a reverse mortgage may look attractive, where we can get her paid with some of the equity in her home, so that she can receive the care that she needs and stay in her home and not be forced into some type of facility type environment.
Hey, we really appreciate it, Matt. There he is, Matt Andersen, our subject matter expert on long-term care. He's on the team. So when we sit down and talk to you, there's a lot of information gathering and discovery process, but we pull Matt in behind the scenes, and then we really get to work. Matt does all the heavy lifting. So I'm smart, but Matt's smarter than smart. And this is what he lives, eats, and breathes, is long-term care. He knows the carriers. We work with more than one. There's a multiple of carriers. There's a multiple of solutions. So we want to thank you for joining us today, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, Joe.
Great. So let's get to our final thoughts for today. As we walk through this is what we want to concentrate on. Lots of things that we covered today, but really buy young and healthy for lower premiums. Consider alternatives like the life insurance and annuities with long-term care riders that we covered in part one of this. Pay attention to the maximum benefits and local costs. What does it cost to stay at a facility in your favorite community today? Call them, ask them, tell them why. Kick the tires, take a walk through that. See if people are happy working there, those sorts of things. Choose a suitable benefit period. They range from a 3-year to a 5-year period of time, and maybe even more. Be aware of elimination periods. So you get the policy, you file the claim. Your elimination period is the period of time that the insurance company says, wait a minute, hang on before we pay this claim. Lastly, as we kind of depart for today, maintain a consistent premium payment for continuous coverage. That's the kind of policy or solution that we're looking for. And guess what? The final thing here today is we have an eBooklet, a blueprint strategy to take you through, you and your family, your loved ones, to really answer the questions that you need to know the answers to before we just come and start throwing darts at the wall on what really fits. And what we like to say at the very end of these podcasts is, thanks for joining us and have a prosperous day.
You've been listening to the Joe Simon Podcast. Big ideas with powerful stories and real-time solutions. Business succession planning, executive benefits, employee benefits, tax beneficial savings, and more. Remember, information discussed here today is dated and not specific to your situation. Always seek personal counsel from qualified advisors. For more about Joe Simon, go to DaVinciInsurance.com. Joe Simon is a licensed insurance agent in the state of Wisconsin. Licensed to advise on accident and health, life insurance, disability insurance, and annuities, as well as qualified long-term care insurance. Make sure to visit the DaVinciInsurance.com archives for more of our podcasts.